everybody, this is Miss O'Neill, this time coming from my apartment. And today we are going to talk about one of my favorite things, just because I really enjoy looking at and talking about artwork with other people, but that is critique versus formal analysis. Both of those are just fancy ways of saying learning how to make a good argument about artwork. And when we think about that, we're actually talking about what's called art criticism. So we will get into that. When you learn about art, we try to always include 4 parts. And the first part is art history. That's the story behind it. So, who the artist was, why they made it, anything that goes along with like understanding the techniques or the processes that had to be involved. All of that is like the art history, like in the past sort of deal. And then we have aesthetics. So we practice that on the first day of school. That's what you like and why. And then production. This is the actual making of the things, actually putting it together, the techniques and all that jazz. But then there's that third or fourth part, the fourth part. And that's what we're focusing on today. So that is where you're getting into what it means and like what you can actually see when you look at it. And that is going into also like material manipulation. So that means like, does it look good or not, and what they could have done to make it better, and going through like the actual analyzing of the artwork. So those 2 bits that we use to talk about that are going to be critiques and formal analysis. There are obviously other parts to an art class as well, and those are kind of here on the side. And they're equally as important. They're just not the main focuses of the class. Today, we're just going to focus on art criticism. And they are both ways of looking at art, like I said, and that is where they're the most in common, but they're actually quite different ways of looking at art. So this PowerPoint is to help show you the differences, but also let you know that they're just both ways of looking at art. So first of all, we're going to talk about critiques. Critiques is what we usually do in class together. And we do this in class together because a critique has to be a discussion. You have to be with the artist, or at least be like texting the artist, or, virtually with the artist, to give them feedback. And that is the main point of a critique, is considered giving feedback. Now, this can be both positive and constructive feedback. Positive is, of course, like, I really like the way you added that texture to the ear, or something like that. But constructive is where things get a little hairy. In this class, we really focus on trying to not give feedback that's going to be harmful to hear. It should never tear down a person. You should never get feedback that says, like, this artwork sucked or anything like that. The constructive feedback is just going to be ways to improve artwork. There's no point in being negative about another student's artwork, because that doesn't help anyone. But what does help is ways that they can fix it. And that is constructive feedback. Also, with critiques, they can happen at any point in the actual art making process. So if it happens at the very beginning when you guys are talking about the idea, or maybe in the middle when you're trying to work out like how things are going to go, and then even at the end where you're trying to decide what you can do to really help finish it off, or any last minute touches. But anyway, a critique is a discussion where you guys give feedback to each other. When we do this, the way that I probably most often do in my class is going to be with a critique sandwich. And this is a life skill, so please pay attention to at least this part. A critique sandwich is where you give one positive, then one thing that's constructive, and again another positive. So what you're doing is you're starting on a good foot, and then you're sliding in something that they have to work on, but also ending on a high note. So that way they remember that it was a positive experience overall. So here's an example of how this works in life. Maybe someone wants to know how their outfit looks. When they walk up, you say, "Oh my gosh, I absolutely love the color of that shirt. I'm not sure that the shoes go with the belt, but overall, I think that the look is rockin'," or something like that. So, what you did there is you gave them a positive thing to think about first, then maybe something they could work on, and then you ended it again on a high note so that you know that it was an overall positive experience. Life skill. This is how it works in art. So, we're going to look at this artwork and pretend that I'm having a conversation with Miss Messmore. And I'll start off by saying, "Miss Messmore, I absolutely love that you chose to do a dog because I really like dogs. I'm not sure that the dog looks like it's the healthiest. Maybe you could work on the proportions." Um, and then the last thing you do is end it again with another positive. So I could say, "But I kind of like the rough texture of it overall." So that could be a thing that you might want to actually like keep and really like emphasize even more. So what you did is you went first with a positive, maybe something she could work on, and then ended it with another positive. So that way it was an overall positive experience. Remember, art should be fun. So critiquing is not a thing that should make anyone feel nervous or bad. So these are just some notes that you could go through on your own if you were thinking about what you could possibly say for a critique as well. Please refer back to this for any virtual critiques that we do, so that way you know different questions that you could think through when you're looking at other people's artworks. Now it's time for formal analysis. Okay, so formal analysis is vastly different. It is still a way of looking at art, but it is not a conversation. In fact, you never get to meet the artist in a formal analysis, usually. But this is a typed thing. So think when you go into a formal analysis, it's kind of like a formal report. So it is a typed 4 paragraphs, and those 4 paragraphs are structured and they have to go in the same order every time. And in each of these paragraphs, you have to meet a specific goal or answer a specific question. So formal analysis is formal. These are the steps that you're going to go through. The first one is describe, second is analyze, third is interpret, and fourth is evaluate. When you start off with describe, your main goal is just to describe it well enough so that if there's no picture included, I still know exactly what you are looking at when you're talking about this artwork. And then analyze is where you're using those EMP statements. So, as a review, those EMP statements or elements and principles statements are going to be where you use an element to create the principle that you're seeing. So, if I'm seeing movement, then I need to find the element that is causing that movement, that visual movement. And then I write a sentence where it says, for example, "The lines in this sculpture are creating movement." That's how that works. And then you'll do that through the sculpture for a couple of sentences or paragraphs and expand on that, making sure to be specific about where you see each of those things. Then you save your feelings for interpretation. Blah, 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 interpretation. This is where you get to actually go into what you think that this artwork could possibly mean and why you feel that way. So people have some pretty crazy interpretations from time to time, and to back it up is really what makes or breaks a formal analysis. So I really want to make sure that I say this as many times as possible. You are not wrong about how you feel about an artwork or what you think it means, as long as you make sure you tell me why you feel that way. And that means showing me or visually describing what you're seeing that makes you feel that way. Then the last step is evaluation. So this again is going to be going through how you overall feel about the artwork. The first one is like what it means for interpret, and then evaluation is overall what you think of it. So is the artwork effective at conveying the meaning? Is it a good artwork or not? And then does it have I'm going to move this so we can all see it. Does it have value? And really meaning when we talk about does it have value, like who could it have value to? And then the last one, why do you feel that way? So like answering why for all of those questions, just backing up your own personal responses. So again, to reiterate what I said, they're both types of criticism. They're both ways of looking at artwork. Critiques are going to be more conversational and really focusing on giving feedback, whereas a formal analysis happens after the artwork is all the way done. It is a typed paragraph or 4 paragraphs that are structured and should all individually have their own parts. We'll practice a formal analysis real quick together. So again, I'm going to do this out loud with you, but this should be a typed paragraph if we were doing it for real. And then if Miss Messmore was the artist, she would never actually see this formal analysis or like get this report or anything like that. Because again, this is not feedback. This is analyzing how we feel about it as individuals. So this first one is describe. Again, when we describe something, we want to describe it well enough that someone who is not looking at it knows what I was looking at. So I could say, this is a sculpture of a kind of abstracted dog. The dog also may be hungry because it has skinnier proportions. I see that it has a texture all over it that's kind of rocky, and it is mounted down to the platform at the bottom of the feet. The dog's head is down, and it appears to be walking. All of that would make a great paragraph for describe. Now, the next one is going to be analyze. So this is where we're making EMP statements. So I would first find the principles over here, and then I could say, okay, movement. Maybe I could say this dog has a dynamic movement. That's my principle. And then I have to use an element that is creating that. This dog has a dynamic movement in the forms, that's my element, of the legs moving in a forward direction. So you can kind of see the M for movement. I could also say this artwork has unity. So that's another principle. And then I need to use an element that is creating that unity. I see a lot of texture. So I could say this artwork creates unity through texture. Okay, and then I could do that a couple more times or go in more depth about where I see those things. And that would be my analyze paragraph. Next is interpret. So this is where I get to say how I feel about it. And I could say, I feel like this artwork is trying to convey the meaning that the dog is hungry. And then I think this because, so this is me backing up my answer, I feel this way because the dog's proportions seem to be very skinny in the legs and where the stomach would be. So that's all that I would really need to say. You could go in further detail if you're wanting to make a more meaty paragraph, which is encouraged. But you're just basically trying to say what you feel and why you feel that way. And then the last one is evaluating. So this is answering a couple questions and backing them up as well. So do I think that this artwork is effective at conveying its meaning? Yes, I do. I think that it absolutely, with its proportions being so skinny, is effective at telling me that this is a hungry dog. So yes, and then that little rant was why. The next question is it a good artwork? And personally, I think it is. I think it's a good artwork because it conveys its meaning really well. Artworks that have meanings, but I don't really see them, sometimes I have trouble with, and that's okay. But that is why I think this one is a good one. Then the next question is, does it have value? Thinking in my head who this could have value to. Well, my dog is literally right next to me, and you know what? I'm a dog lover. This is Trex, by the way. I'm a dog lover, so I think any dog lover would really find value in this artwork. If you were to put this in a rescue or any kind of vet's office, I think that the people that saw this would immediately get an emotional response. So yes, I think this does have value, and that is why. And then that's the end of my report. So that is a formal analysis and an example of how you would write one. I am going to end the PowerPoint here, but I strongly encourage any of you who just want a little bit more about how you interpret art and why people say different things mean different things to watch this video. This will be linked in your assignment. So thank you guys so much for going through this. Please make sure that you turn in your notes on a Google Doc, and I will see y'all soon. All right, bye. If I can end it.